The coffee industry absolutely has to change. It's been changing over the past couple of decades, but there's so much more work that needs to happen so quickly now to ensure that the coffee industry that we work within survives. We've got new crop Rwandans coming in probably November, which is going to be the Twumba Wash, and then we've got an anaerobic natural as well.
Me and Holes met at university between our second and third year. We decided to focus our dissertation research in East Africa.
My final year research looked at the impact that fair trade has on smallholder farming communities, trying to sort of ascertain whether fair trade had been a positive presence to the lives of smallholder communities there, how it had impacted their quality of life, for the good or the bad.
We spent 3 months on coffee farms, obviously not realising that we were kind of literally visiting some of like the best coffee farms in the world.
I can still remember to this day the first coffee producer that we spoke to, just the sheer hospitality that she sort of showed us, and it ended up being a standard really. It sort of turned the whole experience into something that was deeply personal.
It was amazing just to be kind of like immersed in this world.
Classic conundrum about getting the right labels to go on the bags that would then not, kind of sacrifice its recyclability and everything. So whilst fair trade had certainly made some really positive kind of changes within the community, there'd been some really great projects that we'd seen. It also left a lot, lacking.
It's a very one model fits all. A farmer in Kenya would receive the same premium as a farmer in Brazil, where obviously their cost of production is just so different.
It doesn't kind of work in a way that individualises the sort of cooperative or the farming setup. So we absolutely left with a kind of feeling and a sense that there must be a kind of a more impactful way of sourcing coffee. I think for Craig and I, we actually left that trip just kind of completely full of excitement. On the plane on the way back from Nairobi, in the seat, on the way home, having a deep conversation about life and what kind of lay ahead, but just being very sure that we both knew we wanted to work within ethical supply chains.
When we came back, obviously it was kind of a bit downheartening because there wasn't really like a lot going on in coffee, especially up north.
We were kind of sort of stranded, I guess, for a few months, trying not to give up the dreams that we had, but sort of making sure we could bring some money in.
Did all sorts of jobs, worked in a firework factory, did some cleaning, just anything to sort of obviously get by.
At the time it was absolutely agonising because I still just knew so sort of fiercely what I wanted to do. And it was only after I sort of secured a job with an importer that was responsible for selling to nearly every roastery in the UK, was the kind of world of roasting opened up to me.
Holes called me one day when she was at Falcon and said she'd sort of been thinking about things and that we should start our own roastery. As soon as she mentioned it, I was completely on board. I knew that it was like the right thing to do. We
very much started with minimal investment from savings that we had.
So everything we were doing was on a budget. So yeah, we just sort of looking online and found this kind of roaster up in Wales in the middle of nowhere. He had this roaster just in the shed, kind of in the middle of his garden. We got there and realised that the roaster wasn't actually working. We wanted a name and she was bright red, so we kind of went with Roxanne. Once we brought Roxanne back to Leeds, we needed to learn how to use her.
It was very manual. We didn't have any roasting software or profiling software that we could use. So every aspect of what we did was by touch and our own sensory kind of capabilities. Just many, many hours of just backbreakingly hard work.
It was properly like handcrafted coffee.
But I think that's ultimately why it took the time that it did to get to a point where we had a product we were proud of enough to go to market.
The biggest challenge when we set up was the fact that there was pretty much no market for specialty coffee in Leeds and across the north really.
It was Craig's first real job. He was at the age of 22 going into businesses that had been established for longer than he'd been alive, trying to say, this is the best coffee we'll ever try. There was a heck of a lot of work that had to go in the early days just to sort of show people an insight into what went into coffee, bring them into the roastery, do cuppings with them, tastings with them.
I met North Star and Halls and Crag, and I think accidentally most of their family as well, at their inaugural cupping. And I didn't know anything about North Star. I'd never heard of Halls and Crag or anything at the time. You know, it was very clear that from the way they spoke about ethics and quality, it was evidently going to be an integral part of their business.
Up until that point, all we had done was spent money. There'd been absolutely no income coming into the business. Crag had absolutely no sight of any possible salary because we just had no customers. It was literally starting from scratch. So I think when the first one kind of came on board, it was just sheer elation, you know, followed by possibly a little bit of like anxiety.
You know, what if the roast went wrong? What if something wasn't quite right? Obviously wanted it to be perfect. I think as soon as we got the order through, we immediately got the roaster on, roasted it in 2 batches. So about half an hour, bagged it up, and I think probably went to deliver it within like the hour. It was really difficult, but I suppose we were young and had a lot of like energy and passion for what we were doing.
There isn't even an option in his mind that it would ever fail.
You could see they had purpose and the drive to do what they were doing, but it wasn't about their success. It wasn't about things coming into them as a result of their work. It was about that work needing to be done anyway.
From 2013 to 15, we'd managed to sort of grow the company.
Capacity was actually an issue already then.
Halls was still working at Falcon at the time when we set up.
It's a tough situation to be in when you see your loved one kind of going through some real challenges, and the business kind of had got to a point where Crag absolutely needed an extra pair of hands, and it was at the stage where if that pair of hands hadn't been an experienced pair of hands, it would have kind of like set things back a little bit.
Halls joined in 2015. Yeah, she brought a depth of like knowledge and expertise that, you know, no other roastery kind of had. Her palate obviously is like, you know, I still consider it like one of the best in the UK. She was like kind of one of the first sort of Q graders in the UK as well.
We were a bit of a formidable team really, because, you know, it's very rare to have such an aligned way of thinking, and I was just filled with pure excitement about what we could do with the business.
Coffee quality is like hugely important to North Star.
Not only to kind of convert customers, but also to sort of open their ears to hear what we have to say about the ethics.
You can't have a quality coffee unless it's been like purchased in the right way. The kind of two things have to go together for us.
If you can give someone an outstanding cup of coffee, they are more likely to sort of say, why the hell does this taste so much better than what I've had before? Who made it? You know, where was it grown? I want to know all about it. And so quality for us has been that door opener really, to just be able to share those stories, get bits of information into the consumer mindset that hopefully, yeah, is designed to guarantee a sustainable future for coffee farming.
This was never actually supposed to happen. We were supposed to be roasting coffee next door, sharing the space with a coffee shop down here. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and we were landed with the opportunity to open our own coffee shop here. We've never done anything like that before. It was a massive risk.
We were incredibly nervous, but one thing that we were absolutely set on was that although it is a very different type of business, the morals and the kind of values and principles of the business had to mimic exactly the morals, the values and the principles of the roastery. And that kind of fed through to every decision I made.
Just the range of coffee you can get there, and the ability to match that high standard of coffee with an extremely high standard of food and service was incredible. And that really is unparalleled, and we still think it's a really strange thing to be wanting to go to your own coffee shop all the time. But we really do, we really enjoy it.
It was like seeing our dreams kind of come true. Our business has definitely developed in a certain way because of our commitment to the two most important principles to us, which are kind of quality and ethics.
As a business, you consistently have opportunities coming your way to either cheapen what you do, cut corners, cut costs, but you're always making a choice there. And what's, I think, really impressive is that choice is always made in the right direction. The motive is still the ethics kind of years in.
It would never even cross our mind to sort of look at buying cheaper coffee. It's people over profit.
We've had to turn down opportunities that would have seen us kind of scale very, very quickly.
On a financial level, you can see it does damage our profitability. We add a lot of value to this chain, but the people that add the most value are at the start of that chain, and they're the least likely to see wealth distributed back to them.
We knew that we had to pay more than fair trade, and that we had to be able to take each farmer's individual circumstances into account in terms of their cost of production. It kind of seems like the only sustainable way to sort of do business.
So the business decision, I guess, that sticks out the most for me is that we are even doing this El Salvador project that I'm really closely involved with.
So it was a group of farmers and there was one in particular, so Maria, who was kind of like a little bit behind where the other producers were. We actually just kind of invested some money in out of our own profits to invest in her drying infrastructure.
And the infrastructure specifically was raised beds for drying coffee effectively. What you find with the infrastructure improving it is that you start to get more evenly dried coffee, and that ends up being more uniform, more consistent, and overall a higher quality level. What you find is this operational efficiency that we're going to be building with the El Salvador project, but also resilience.
A lot of people kind of asked why we're doing this, because in a way we're sort of improving the quality of her coffee, which in turn hopefully means she'll be able to get a better price for her coffee, which means we'll be paying more.
That's been an amazing development for myself and for Crag. We always had in mind that North Star would eventually do more than just buy coffee from producers, but it would actually become integrated into their lives, as a really important company to that farmer. And that's kind of the stage that we've got to now. And being able to sort of get some bits up and running in Kenya and in Tanzania, with the initiative Gente del Futuro, which has been incredible to be a part of because it's absolutely the future of the industry.
So today we're just doing a bit of a sensory workshop for some of the local young people. There's 6 people, I think, joining us today. So they're kind of part of the Gente del Futuro programme that Vava has set up and that we are supporting.
It's so crucial that we start investing in youth and in women. Those are the 2 most important kind of groups really to the coffee industry if we want it to stick around for the next 20, 30, 50 years. And that's exactly what this organisation kind of aims to do.
To do the tasting, we're going to take a spoon and you go from A to E.
The whole reason Halls and Crag got into this industry is still the reason behind that project, really. God.
When I look back at our development as a business, I'm just immensely proud that out of that chaos has come some really amazing achievements.
It's just crazy to think, something that's so small and the difference that's allowed us to make to people's lives. We've not kind of achieved everything we want to, but we're kind of definitely getting there.
Whatever we do, we have to grow without compromise.
Brands with authenticity are going to become more important than ever.
Our direction clearly is that we are able to give more back to that chain that we're already successfully a part of.
We're beyond where we ever thought we could get to.
I wouldn't say either of us are sort of business people. So yeah, I think we've grown a lot. We've definitely learned to, work together.
I guess they've just become even more rounded as leaders, business people, and hopefully as a family as well. They've burdened a lot of stresses. They've gone through a lot as business owners.
And we've managed to do that whilst really sort of retaining our core values.
You can do things in the right way and still make a business out of it.
That is absolutely the proudest achievement. We've worked so hard to prove that people and planet don't have to be sacrificed for profit.